Hello and welcome to this special program highlighting the historic and exceptional relationship between the state of Kuwait and the United Kingdom, commemorating 125 years since the Kuwaiti-British Friendship Agreement. This enduring partnership stands as a model of close cooperation across political, economic, and cultural fields, reflecting the deep ties between the royal families and the two nations. In today's program, we will focus on the visit of His Highness the Emir Sheikh Mishal Al Ahmed Al Jabbar Al Sabah, may Allah protect and bless him, to the United Kingdom, which reinforces this rich legacy of bilateral relations and opens new avenues for cooperation. Stay tuned as we address the aspects of this historic relationship and its dimensions that continue to enhance future cooperation between Kuwait and the United Kingdom.
For 125 years, the historic ties between the state of Kuwait and the United Kingdom have built a bridge of friendship and cooperation. Our distinguished guests, Her Excellency Belinda Lewis, His Majesty's Ambassador to the State of Kuwait; His Excellency Bedr Lemneigh, the State of Kuwait's Ambassador to the United Kingdom; Dr. Saeed Shahata, lecturer in Middle East politics and international relations. Stay tuned for an engaging discussion on this remarkable relationship.
The long-standing relationship between the state of Kuwait and the United Kingdom reflects a unique history of cooperation and mutual respect. And to discuss the special bond in detail, we are honored to host Her Excellency Belinda Lewis, His Majesty's Ambassador to the state of Kuwait. Ambassador, it's a pleasure to have you with us here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
We have a lot of ground to cover in our program as we're trying to discuss and highlight these unique and historic ties between our two nations. So to begin, I want to ask you, how would you describe the relationship between Kuwait's ruling family and the UK's ruling family, and how important are these relations to broader bilateral ties?
So it's a very important relationship. I think because of its sense of continuity and history, and of course where you have royal family, a ruling family, you've got that sense of continuity over many, many years, certainly sometimes over many decades, which of course at the political level we just don't have. We have elections in the UK, as everyone will know, roughly every 4 to 5 years, sometimes more frequently. So sometimes the personalities are changing quite rapidly, but where you have families who are friends, who are partners, that's where you get this long-standing, really historic level of cooperation. And I'm really thrilled when I think about His Highness the Emir Sheikh Mishal Al Ahmed Al Jabbar Al Sabah's visit to Scotland. And I was looking into the history of the travel between Kuwait and the United Kingdom, and I believe that the first member of the Kuwait ruling family to visit Scotland was Sheikh Ahmed Al Jabbar Al Sabah back in 1919. And he seemed to have a wonderful visit. He started off in London, where he travelled to congratulate King George V on his victory in the First World War. And then he travelled up to Scotland to Glasgow, which is quite close to Dumfries House, which is where His Highness the Emir will be visiting. And Sheikh Ahmed seemed to get up to all sorts of different things. He visited the airfield. He saw some of the cutting-edge technology around aviation at the time. I believe he travelled in a submarine. He went to the museums and beautiful art galleries around Glasgow City, and I'm sure he brought back many rich memories when he sailed back to Kuwait in November of 1919. But just thinking about His Highness the Emir's visit, this is a really important visit. He is going to call upon the King, His Majesty King Charles III, at one of his private residences, Dumfries House, which is in Ayrshire. So it's quite close to Glasgow, but it's out in the Scottish countryside. It's going to be very, very cold. It would be marvellous if we could have some snow as well. But it's out in the countryside, there's lots of space, and it's a really interesting estate for His Majesty the King to show His Highness the Emir around. And it's really to look at all of the fruits of the Memorandum of Understanding which the State of Kuwait has signed with the King's Foundation, which is one of King Charles's charities. And this stemmed from a conversation about a love of horticulture which the two leaders share. So it's now turning into lots of different projects, and the trip to Dumfries House will be an opportunity for His Highness the Emir to have a look at what's happening off the back of this MOU and to see how these projects are really coming to life in Scotland.
Sounds like it's going to be a very packed visit for both parties.
I think it will be. There'll be a tour of the estate, so His Highness the Emir can see the working farm. He can look at the animal husbandry areas. He can look at the agricultural projects, horticultural projects, which are all about organic farming and sustainable food production. But there are also educational projects around heritage crafts. For example, building restoration, slow fashion. There's a whole sort of atelier section there as well. It's a really, really interesting estate. I was there in the summer to have a look around, and it's marvellous the number of people who are coming and learning new skills or enhancing their skills who can then go on to find paid employment. So it's very good in terms of economic generation, and I'm sure that some of those skills will be interesting and useful to Kuwaitis as well as to British people around Scotland.
Your Ambassador, while this is His Highness's first visit to the UK as the Emir, he has travelled to London 3 times during his tenure as the Crown Prince. What are your memories of those visits, and what were some of the key outcomes?
So His Highness the Emir travelled to London for the state funeral of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So that was a very sombre occasion. What really struck me when I thought about His Highness the Emir travelling for that occasion is, of course, he was representing his family, the state of Kuwait, but also many Kuwaitis who had such fond memories of Her late Majesty. And when many people came to the embassy to sign the condolence books that we opened, I was struck by how many Kuwaitis said to me, she was our queen too. And it was a very memorable, very touching sentiment. So that was quite a sad visit. But His Highness the Emir returned for the coronation of King Charles and Queen Camilla. So that was a much more joyous occasion with lots of festivities. And then he returned later on in the autumn for a private meeting with His Majesty King Charles III. And I think this is where they started to talk about their shared love of horticulture, about food security, about sustainable food production. And this is where the joint projects with the King's Foundation started to take root.
As the joint celebrations marking 125 years of Kuwaiti-British partnership draw to a close, what, in your view, have been some of the highlights of this year, and are there any areas of royal ruling family cooperation that you would like to highlight specifically?
Oh yes, I think, I mean, it just feels like the other day that we had the visit from His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Edward. He was King Charles's youngest brother. He visited us and had a tour around the city. He went to Buckingham Palace, of course. He met His Highness the Emir and also His Highness the Crown Prince and His Highness the Prime Minister. He met the Kuwaiti cabinet, had lots of discussions about the future vision of Kuwait. He visited Dixon House and also went to the Kuwait Towers, and we had a lovely garden reception where he was able to meet lots of members of the British community here, but also lots of Kuwaitis who are very active in the community. So that was a very important one. That was the Duke's first visit to Kuwait, and I'm glad that that came in the 125th year of partnership. There's also, of course, the King's Foundation and horticultural projects. We had 3 Kuwaiti horticulturalists who spent time at Highgrove and also Dumfries House, learning different British techniques around food production. So those 2 sort of stand out in my mind as being specifically sponsored by His Highness the Emir. But we've done lots of different things. We've had lots of cultural celebrations. We produced a beautiful mural of the hoopoe bird, which migrates between the UK and Kuwait down at the Gold Souk. We also produced some lovely murals within the embassy grounds to make sure that we always remember the 125th anniversary. We had a children's author, Clive McFarland, who came in from Northern Ireland. And he did some book readings and some draw-alongs. He's an illustrator as well for children. We've had 10 exhibitions now at the National Library. Many have been photograph exhibitions, but some have also brought out archive material, for example, looking back at our commercial and trading ties. We had a fashion show, which was marvellous. That was great fun. We also had a car rally, which was very, very popular. My team and I planted 125 trees alongside the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and UN Habitat out at Ahmadi Oasis. And we've had lots of other things. There's been a lot of work, but it's also been a lot of fun in this really special year.
It sounds like a lot of work and a lot of fun. I look forward to seeing those archives. And Your Excellency, it's been a pleasure to get this interview rolling with you, and I look forward to continuing our conversation after we move on to this next segment. To deepen our understanding of this exceptional partnership, we are now turning to a recorded interview with His Excellency, the Ambassador of the State of Kuwait to the United Kingdom, who will share with us his unique perspective on this event.
There's several milestones in the relation between Kuwait and United Kingdom. But let me shed a light on a couple of them that really shaped the relation and made it what it is now. The first milestone would be the 1899 treaty that was signed between Kuwait and United Kingdom, or what they call it, the Anglo-Kuwaiti Treaty. And we have to note here that this is not the start of the relation between United Kingdom and Kuwait. The relation between the two countries goes as far as the 18th century. The second milestone, it would be establishing the Kuwait Investment Office in London in 1953. And that's prior to our independence in 1961. So to establish such an office in London in 1953, that gives you an indication how the deep thinking, the deep vision of our founding fathers to establish such an important financial office in London at that time, which is now considered one of the main pillars of the relation between Kuwait and the UK. The third landmark, without a doubt, would be the 1999 Iraq invasion on Kuwait. The firm stand of the UK at that time to denounce the invasion, and the firm stand of Margaret Thatcher, the Prime Minister at that time, to lead a coalition to liberate Kuwait with the US. It's one of the important era of the relation, and this is something we cherish, we respect, and we appreciate of the UK at that time, and we still. The fourth, if I can add, would be the relation between the two monarchs that really got stronger and deeper over the time, and would give the relation a special uniqueness and warmth in the relation. Okay, what we have now, comparing after these four landmarks, what we have now, we have 10,000 students studying in the UK. That's the highest compared to other countries. We have 180,000 Kuwaiti visitors that come and visit the UK, comparing also the highest compared to other countries. We have a strong academic link between academic institutions in Kuwait and academic institutions in the United Kingdom. We have established what is called Kuwait Chair, academic chair, that's established in prestigious schools such as Cambridge University, LSE, and Durham universities. And we have a strong trade volume equals to 6 billion, and it's a potential that can go further and deeper.
We'd like to thank the Ambassador for his insightful interview and for sharing his valuable perspectives with us. Now we're going to return to our conversation with Her Excellency Belinda Lewis. Ambassador, defense cooperation between the State of Kuwait and the United Kingdom has long been a cornerstone of the bilateral relations, contributing to regional security and addressing shared challenges. And it remains, of course, a vital factor in promoting stability and peace in the region. So in this regard, what are the two countries doing to grow this collaboration in defense and security?
It's an area that we've always been very busy and active in. So on joint training and military education, this is an area where we're very strong. So by the end of 2024, we'll have seen 32 British short-term training teams coming in and out of Kuwait to train Kuwaiti armed forces personnel in lots of different areas. Some of it is around diving, around bomb disposal, around battlefield first aid, around house clearance exercises. I've been along to watch some of these, and it's really interesting, it's quite exciting. And both sides, both British military and Kuwaiti military, have said that they've learned a lot from just collaborating in this way. We also, of course, have the Mubarak Al Abdullah Staff Command College, which is the only UK accredited defence college in the Middle East North Africa region. I believe that there are around about 100 Kuwaiti Armed Forces personnel who've attended military courses in the UK, and we have British students at the Joint Staff and Command College in Kuwait. We also have a lot of British instructors there, so it's really nice to see this kind of exchange. We have the same military doctrine, so we have shared approaches to many different areas, and this is very helpful that our approaches and systems and often our equipment are interoperable. It makes it much easier to work alongside each other. And of course, we're looking to the future to always see what more we can do to strengthen this area further. We've just finalised our government-to-government procurement mechanism, which will make it much quicker and much easier for Kuwait to be able to procure some of the leading technology and military equipment from the UK and from our industry providers. So I'm sure that that's something where we'll see more and more of that growing next year. And cybersecurity is really important as well to both of our nations. It's a growing challenge, a growing threat right across the world. So the UK is doing what it can to work alongside the National Cybersecurity Centre, which is a fairly new entity here in Kuwait, to see what we can do to try and share our best practice and also learning from mistakes that we've made and how we've strengthened our processes to make them more secure.
Your Excellency, in light of ongoing geopolitical shifts, how can the UK and Kuwait move beyond their traditional defence and security cooperation to try and uphold regional peace and stability, in your opinion?
So this year has been an important year for many different reasons. But one reason is because it's seen our very first joint humanitarian endeavours. So the UK and Kuwait have agreed to launch two projects, both delivered through UNICEF. One is a clean water project in Gaza, particularly focused on children and the families and guardians who care for those kids, to be able to have clean water to try and improve their health conditions. The second joint project, again delivered by UNICEF, was in Yemen, and this was around primary health care facilities. And this is the first time that we've taken this step together where we've jointly funded a delivery partner like UNICEF to be able to do some good. It's obviously a small drop in the ocean, but it's something. And I think we'll learn from this experience of our paperwork, our approaches, funding mechanisms, to be able to build on this and do more and more together in areas that are desperately in need of assistance from a humanitarian perspective. So I really want to see these projects grow. I'd love to see more humanitarian projects going on in Gaza. We mustn't forget the West Bank, but there are lots of different areas. Sudan is also a shared priority for the UK and Kuwait. So I really hope that we will soon be able to see another joint project there in the humanitarian space. We're also supporting each other in lots of different ways on counter-terrorism, working closely together through different agencies to try and protect our communities and try and lead to, hopefully, an increased stability in a very troubled region. I do hope that 2025 will be a better year for so many people.
I think a lot of us hope that. Mm-hmm. Your Excellency, I'm learning so much from our conversation with you, and I hope so is our audience, and I look forward to continuing our discussion right after this next segment. Thank you for your contribution. Mm-hmm. We now turn to London, where a lecturer in the Middle East politics and international relations, Dr. Saeed Shahida, is currently joining us. Hello, Dr. Shahida, and welcome to our program.
Hi, thank you.
The visits from His Highness the Emir of the State of Kuwait, may Allah protect and bless him, to the United Kingdom have played a pivotal role in strengthening bilateral relations. In your view, how have these visits helped consolidate this strategic partnership and foster new opportunities for political and diplomatic cooperation?
In international relations and diplomacy, when visits conducted by the highest officials, in this case, His Highness the Emir of Kuwait, Sheikh Mishal Al-Ahmad Al-Jabr Al-Subah, he visited London 3 times as a crown prince, and he showed like how is a strong and close relationship between the UK and Kuwait. And one of the like examples of how this visit is strengthened when His Highness came and attended the anniversary of the Kuwait Investment Office, the 70 years anniversary. They signed, the Kuwait and United Kingdom signed an investment partnership deal to strengthen the investment between the two countries, which is a big thing between the two countries. Also, King Charles III, he visited Kuwait several times when he was the crown prince. So the relationship on personal level, on official levels, shows how the strength of this relation between the two countries. And those visits will add, because in each visit there is deals, signed agreement, more understanding about different issues, regionally, internationally, politically, on economic level, cultural level, social level. So there is many aspects of the relationship between these two countries, and the visits add to it because they push for this relationship to more stronger and go from step to another step. So the visits are very crucial to strengthen the relationship between the two countries.
And Doctor, what are the key areas of collaboration between the state of Kuwait and the United Kingdom today, and how can both nations build on this cooperation to tackle shared challenges such as regional security and global economic shifts?
There are many areas of collaboration between the two countries. First, the trade between the two countries. The trade trade in 2023 is about £6 billion, and is going to increase because there is more agreement and deals between the two countries. In addition to that, the Kuwait Investment Office invested in UK $42 billion compared to $9 billion in 2003. So over 2 decades, it's increased about five times. So that's increased fivefold. In addition to that, the Kuwait Investment Office run an assets about 250 billion pound. That's increased from 27 billion dollars in 2003. So there is investment. In addition to that, cybersecurity cooperation between the two countries, where the UK helping Kuwait for its national center for cybersecurity, and there is cooperation between the two countries. In addition to that, in defense, there is some exercise between the two countries, some training for the Kuwaiti forces and using the expertise of the UK. So there is also education. There is about more than 10,000 students studying in UK universities. In addition to that, there is about 153,000 Kuwaiti visitors in 2023, and they spent about 300.5 million sterling pound, which is adding to the British economy. So there's a lot of contribution from that. There is also companies and British expats live in Kuwait and contribute to the Kuwait economy. So there is different areas on the economic level, on security level, defense level, education level. So that's areas should be built on to help to strengthen the relationship in those areas, which can help also in the region and on the global level to help other countries in joint projects like with UNICEF and other organizations. So there is big avenues to build on what we have to strengthen the strategic relationship between the two countries. In addition to that, to face the regional security threats in the area where you have like there is problems, Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and other places. Also the threat of the Islamic State, the so-called Islamic State still in Syria. So there is many threats around the world, the cyber security threats. So these areas can be built on between the two countries to help themselves and help other countries which they need their help in these fields.
Amid the rapid changes in the international landscape, what priorities could the state of Kuwait and United Kingdom focus on to further enhance their strategic and economic partnership in the future?
I think the priorities should be based on the challenges facing the two countries and the world right now. The main one is there is food security issues. So the talk about using the life sciences and using the technology in order to increase the productivity of this kind of like crops and other agriculture, products. In addition to that, technology to save the environment with the climate change, and we can see the consequences of the climate change on the world. So helping to do like green technology projects which help the environment and help to save our earth from the damages caused by this climate change. In addition to that, cybersecurity with the online extremists who are using the online to incite violence, and we So recently in Germany, what happened using the online in order to increase this kind of extremist views, and what happened like killing people by using car in Christmas markets. So it's another threat. So there is need to be close and more investment in that. And I think Kuwait in 2015 announced investment of $1 billion on the cybersecurity. So this is another one. The third one is about economy, because after Brexit, I think the UK need Kuwait and need like different partners on trade, and in order to replace or compensate the loss of leaving the European Union. So there is many areas in security, in economy, and in environment and technology, which can strengthen the relationship between them and help to face the dangers and threats from extremist groups all over the world.
Lecturer in Middle East politics and international relationships. Doctor, thank you for joining us today. We'll now take a short break, and when we return, we'll continue our discussion with Her Excellency here in the studio. Stay with us.
The Kuwaiti-British relationship extends beyond diplomacy into academia and culture. Our distinguished guests, His Excellency Khalid Al-Dwaysan, former Kuwaiti ambassador to the United Kingdom and member of the Kuwaiti-British Friendship Committee. Dr. Hassan Ashkanani, assistant professor of anthropology and archaeology at Kuwait University. Isa Yahya Dashti, researcher in Kuwaiti-British relations. Join us for an engaging discussion on the academic and cultural legacy of this enduring partnership.
Welcome back to our special program. To further enrich our discussion on this remarkable partnership, we'll now turn to a recorded interview with His Excellency Khalid Al-Dwaysan, former Kuwaiti ambassador to the United Kingdom and a member of Kuwaiti-British Friendship Committee.
Calling this relation 125 officially, as I said, you know that it was 250 years for all of us, but officially they believe in 125 years that the relation with the United Kingdom is becoming stronger. The students were hundreds and they became thousands. Now we have at least 10,000 Kuwaiti students. It shows how they are loving United Kingdom. When you see 4 visits of His Highness the Emir, that shows how this relation is so connected with each other. It will help us and it will help the area for the security, stability, and progress.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your time and your insight. Now let's dive right back into our conversation with Her Excellency Ambassador Belinda Lewis. With Kuwait and the UK celebrating 250 years of trade ties in 2025, what opportunities do you foresee in terms of continuing trade growth and investment relations between the two countries, and in which sectors do you think will see the greatest opportunities?
So that's a really interesting question about which sectors are most likely to take off. Some of the newer areas that we're exploring with Kuwait investors, including the Sovereign Wealth Fund, are around life sciences. So biomedical sciences, that kind of research is a big deal for the UK. We've got a growing industry and rapidly developing expertise in that area. And it's something that we're talking to Kuwaiti investors about. Artificial intelligence and different kinds of technology, including education technology, is also an area that's under discussion. but we benefit hugely from Kuwaiti investment in all different sectors of the UK economy, whether it's infrastructure, different kinds of real estate, including increasingly outside of the southeast, outside of the capital, and also in utilities and transport infrastructure. So we look constantly for good investment opportunities, and then talk to Kuwaiti friends and partners about that. But I do think there's something around research and development, particularly around life sciences, that's of a real shared interest at the moment. I'm pleased to say our trading relationship in terms of imports and exports has grown. It's grown by about 17% over the last year, which is really welcome. That's a healthy increase. And the trade footprint is actually in Kuwait's favour. So the UK imports more from Kuwait than we export. Obviously, I'd like to see our exports grow. At the moment, our trade footprint is worth about 6 billion between our two countries, and over 4 billion is imports from Kuwait into the UK, predominantly aviation fuel.
Okay. As an increasing number of Kuwaiti students are studying in UK universities, how do you hope growing educational links will contribute to the strengthening of ties between our two nations?
So I think this is a really important area, because when you think about the chapter in your life when you go off to university, you have some really formative experiences. Often it's the first time living away from your family, you're building lifelong friendships. And also, of course, studying very hard, thinking about your future career and all sorts of life skills that you will need. And I think it's marvellous that about 10,000 young people from Kuwait are continuing that educational journey in the UK. We see a lot of Kuwaiti students in and around Manchester, of course, around the London universities, but increasingly going out into different cities too. So some of our Scottish universities benefit from a lot of Kuwaiti students. Newcastle, my hometown, also has a lot of Kuwaiti students. We see a lot of Kuwaitis studying the STEM subjects, quite a lot around dentistry and medicine, of course a lot around around engineering, but also cybersecurity is really taking off, computer software and computer engineering as well. Less so in the liberal arts, but it's a broad spread. And I think what people are doing is forming lifelong connections. And we tend to find that Kuwaiti students who are in the UK, their parents studied in the UK, sometimes people's grandparents studied in the UK. So it'd be marvellous to think that that new generation who are studying there now would then think about perhaps sending their own children to study in some of the finest universities in the UK.
Absolutely. The UK is a global leader in creative industries such as film, theatre, fashion, and music. What can you tell us about ongoing efforts to boost collaboration in this particular space?
So I think this is another really interesting area to look at, and just during the year of 2024 I've had the pleasure of watching a number of orchestral performances where it's been a fusion of British and Kuwaiti musical styles. So we had Rhythms of Kuwait, which was an orchestral performance at the Theatre Royal in Drury Lane in London's West End. That was marvellous, with dancing and drumming and singing, and as part of British Week at the Jack, we also had a marvellous orchestral performance. It was a big orchestra. I believe about half were British performers and half were Kuwaitis. So again, it was bringing together different musical styles. I think fashion is something that we jointly appreciate. So in our Great British Fashion Show that we had just last month, we were showcasing different British brands that sell very well in the Kuwaiti market. A Kuwaiti fashion designer, Monta Al-Ajil, showcased her collection of Western style fashion at London Fashion Week earlier in the year, and there are a number of other Kuwaiti designers who were showcasing more sort of Islamic styles of dress, which also sells very well in London. So I think there's this great shared appreciation. There's Sulaiman Al-Bassam, who I think a lot of people watching the programme will know. He's appeared in British films. He also does a lot of theatre here in Kuwait. I've watched some of his performances. So we've got lots of people who are moving back and forth between our two countries, showcasing what is best about their particular sort of creative sector. And I think there's this love and shared appreciation of any kind of art form that is good, regardless of whether it's Kuwaiti or British.
Absolutely. I look forward to hearing more about that. We're going to take a quick shift, Your Excellency, to a phone call right now and then continue our conversation. Joining us now for a different perspective is on the line is Dr. Hassan In your exhibition, British Travelers in Kuwait, you showcase rare artifacts documenting the visits of British travelers to the state of Kuwait. How do these artifacts contribute to offering a new perspective on Kuwaiti-British relations?
Actually, I would like just to thank you for inviting me for this talk and just to speak about the friendship relationship between Kuwait and British. Actually, I have started like the last 10 years to focus on different aspects between Kuwait and UK through the traveler's book who visited Kuwait since 1758, the earliest mention of Kuwait or Gurain in the British literature. And actually this was by Dr. Ives, who met the first Sheikh of Kuwait, or who he called the Sheikh of Gurain. In 1758, he might mean the Sheikh Sabah the first. And these literatures actually spotlights on different aspects of Kuwait lifestyle, like social, economic, political and cultural lifestyle that couldn't be mentioned or found in any different resources. And those very collectible books and very extremely rare to find. You have to go to different auctions and to see who visited Kuwait and why they visited Kuwait. So we have, for example, Ibis, we have Stickler, we have Sir Pickingham, and too many names about the British travelers, officers, or even like Orientalists who were interested to visit Kuwait and document different lifestyle of Kuwait. And I was so honored to present these collections in 2019 to celebrate 120 years of friendship between Kuwait and the British, and also last September in London to celebrate the 125 years of a friendship between the two countries. And by the way, also these books talk about the earliest archaeological finds before the arrival of the official first archaeological missions in 1957 by Aarhus University. We know from 1920s the British talk about some headstones, stone tools, some burial mounds, timoles in Kuwait mainland or in Kuwait islands. As I'm doing archaeology, I was also interested to look to these books to see how the British came to Kuwait in 1920s and 30s, and noticed that there are too many ancient sites before doing what I call unofficial excavation, and they by their reports and diaries led the other missions to come to Kuwait and excavate for the ancient history of Kuwait. And this is actually what happened for the University of College London, who excavated the earliest and oldest human occupation in Kuwait, in Sabiya, North Kuwait Bay, when they found late Stone Age sites dated to 7,000 years ago in North Kuwait, which reconstruct the ancient history of Kuwait instead of 4,000, push it back to 7,000. So these books, literatures, and other resources we try to collect, it can tell us about even some very tiny details about how the Kuwaiti female, how they were in 1860. The souk Mubarakiya, or what they call it, like the bazaar, the old town, they describe it very well in 1833. And also the number of boats, booms, the port, the Kuwaiti dialects was well described in these literatures. So we would like to get more collection to know more about how the British travelers saw Kuwait, especially after 1775. And we know that next year, after 6-7 months, we're going to celebrate 250 years of relationship between Kuwait and UK, because the East India Company decided in 1775 to move from Zubair in South Iraq to move to Kuwait, and this was a big step and a big point for Kuwait history that a company like the East India decide to move their activities and headquarters and offices to Kuwait, which changed also the shape of the postal service in the area 250 years ago, because it means that Kuwait is very safe. Kuwait has a good relationship with the British, and the decision to take Kuwait as a main part for this company also would be so interested for other officers to come to Kuwait in 19th and 18th century to write more about Kuwait society, and we would like to shed light about this historical relationship over 200 years old.
Dr. Ashkenani, I really appreciate your insights on that, but I do have another question I'd like to ask you if you don't mind. When selecting historical documents and artifacts for the exhibition Kuwaiti-British Relations in the books of travelers, documents, and photographies, what were the most significant details or stories you discovered that shed light on lesser-known aspects of the relationship between the two nations?
Actually, for example, what I am interested in, or the most important details, is about the Sheikh of Kuwait. For example, we have very rare let's say like less chance to find the earliest name of the first Sheikh of Kuwait, Sheikh Sabah the first, and it can be found in the British resources like Dr. Ives' book, A Journey from England to Bombay, and he mentioned that I have 5,000 camels, I would like to send them or pass to Aleppo, and he was told that the company or the land is not safe enough except a small land called Grain, and you have to take a permission from the Sheikh of Grain. So these small paragraph tells us a lot about how the safety life and about the stability in Kuwait was back in 1758, and the mention of Sheikh of Kuwait and Sheikh of Grain is a good proof about the Kuwait independence and the existence of the royal family on Kuwait, for example. If you go back to the maps, we have too many details that we needed sometimes in the diplomatic relationship and political events to approve, for example, the name of some small bays, small like we called khor or bays, some islands, the border zones, for example, very ancient names of we call in Kuwait sayhed or mounds on Kuwait desert cannot be found in any maps except the British maps in 1830s and 1850s. Those maps, like if you have a Pinkerton map in 1813, he wrote some nice details about the South Kuwait coastline, Fantas, Fenitis, Fahihil, and about the ruins of Jahra. And we know there was no ruins in Jahra except the Red Palace that was built in 1920, but he mentioned, I visited Kuwait in 1830.
Dr. Ashkenani, you are a wealth of information, and we really appreciate you joining us. I'm so sorry to have to cut you off, but we are running out of time. But we really appreciate your insights and wish you all the best in your work, and thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
Now we're going to return to our conversation with Her Excellency, who's joining me right here in the studio. Ambassador, as the UK and Kuwait are both seafaring nations, are there any joint initiatives between the two countries to combat marine pollution and protect biodiversity?
Yes, there are. So the UK has put its principal scientist for the Middle East region in Kuwait, and part of this is because the organisation responsible for marine conservation for the Gulf is also based in Kuwait. It's headquartered in Kuwait. It's called ROPME, the Regional Organisation for the Protection of the Marine Environment. And our scientist, Rachel Mulholland, does a lot of work with ROPME on lots of different areas. So some of this is around things like carbon capture and carbon sequestration. I can hardly get the word out. Looking at seagrass. Which there's quite a lot of around Kuwait, but it's quite delicate and it needs to be preserved. So there are various sort of preservation, conservation projects around that. There's also quite a lot around marine plastic, marine litter. Some of this is around public education and trying to explain to people that, enjoy the beaches, enjoy your time out in the sea, but please make sure that you take your litter with you. If you have a picnic, clear up after yourselves. And it is such a shame walking down by the Corniche or playing on the beaches how much litter is found there, and it finds its way into the sea and it can harm lots of different species there. So that's part of what we do. Our scientist goes in and out of schools and provides educational packages for schools as well to help educate children around preservation and protection of sea life. There's lots of different work that we do there. ROTME is a big organisation and they have lots of multi-year projects which we're proud to be part of. So we do lots of practical work and we also provide a lot of scientific advisory input as well there.
I appreciate you bringing that up because it smoothly transitions to my next question for you, because you kind of touched upon this, but how would you say Kuwait and the UK can develop initiatives to jointly address global challenges posed by climate change?
So this is it's a really big question, and climate change and its impacts, of course, take many different forms. One of the forms that we see here in Kuwait is around sand and dust storms, and the really significant impact that sand and dust, once caught up in the air, can have on people's health, but also on crops and on commercial productivity in lots of different industries. So the Kuwait Fund has jointly funded a project alongside the UK government to try and look at different causes and better understanding of the impacts on health and other impacts of sand and dust storms. So that's something that's already underway. UK industry is also working with the oil refineries here and different production facilities, looking at how to recycle some of the byproducts of the refinery process and how to try and green the oil production process as much as possible. So this was a big commercial contract that we won. It's gone very well. So we're looking at replicating that technology elsewhere, and Kuwait's oil industry is also looking at replicating that elsewhere. I know that Kuwait has done a huge amount to reduce flaring, which used to release different things into the air. And now just driving around Ahmadi and Mina Al Abdullah refinery, you can see the big difference there. So this is an important area to both of our countries, and it's an area where we want to continue to share our knowledge and share technology. There's a lot of expertise amongst British IOCs, British oil companies working in Kuwait, and companies who would like to come in and do more in Kuwait, where they're there ready to share their knowledge to try and, as long as people are producing oil and refining oil, which is going to continue for many, many years to come, let's try and make it as green and as environmentally friendly as possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ambassador, again for your insights. We're going to take a quick shift here to another phone call, and then we'll continue our conversation. Now joining us to discuss Kuwaiti-British relations, we have joining us on the line Isa Yahya Deshti, BEM, a researcher in Kuwaiti-British relations and holder of the British Empire Medal, who now joins us on the line. Mr. Deshti, thank you for being with us. As a recipient of the British Empire Medal and the researcher in Kuwaiti-British relations, what are the most significant historical milestones you have uncovered in your work that reflect the evolution of relations between the state of Kuwait and the United Kingdom, and how can these insights be leveraged to strengthen bilateral ties today?
As you know, that our relation with Britain is old and deep roots. The celebration of the 125 years of partnership in 2024, it is the celebration of the anniversary of the second agreement between Kuwait and Britain that signed by the ruler of Sheikh Mubarak al-Sabah and the British government, and that we are celebration for this agreement this year. But our relations dates back to 1775, which is the beginning of the recording history of the beginning of our relation between the two countries. Imagine that's 250 years full of events, occasion, cooperation, many stories that are today considerably strong building blocks that establish this beautiful historical relation between the two countries. Our long history with Britain can be used to present it today through books, events, lectures, exhibition that work to spear the awareness and culture in the people, which in turn concentratively to strengthen our relation and support all the work and program between the two countries.
Through your efforts in organizing exhibitions that document the shared history of Kuwait and Britain, including those highlighting visits by prominent British figures like King Charles III, how do these initiatives contribute to fostering and strengthening diplomatic relations between the two nations?
Yes, with nearly 30 books and booklets and 35 exhibitions and many lectures that I'm giving from 2010 and today, they are becoming a reference and source for students and researchers and who is interested in the British-Kuwaiti relation. I have documents, many events and story that's like the royal visits to Kuwait, starting with the first royal visit to Kuwait from Queen Elizabeth II and the 8 visits of King Charles and the other royal family members, and also the Amiri visits to Kuwait, and many, many stories that we are documentary. I have documented the event and story that one once has documents, and today they are available to everyone to learn about our beautiful and great history. This is our history, and we must prevent it in every way, including documents it through this work. As you know, when we are written these books and documents this event and document this the royal visit or the important events that we are keeping safe our relation for the future. So the researchers, the interesting the researchers that can use this all information for these studies, and we can learn from the past how we are build our future.
Thank you, Mr. Isa Deshti, for your input and your time. Stay tuned, viewers. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back to our program. Welcome back. Let's continue our conversation with Her Excellency, the Ambassador. Your Excellency, we're going to take a little bit of a shift here and talk about UK and Kuwait's long history of collaboration in the field of healthcare. How do you see these ties progressing in the future?
So I guess I see them developing in 2 different directions. Part is around the actual provision of healthcare and medical treatment, but we're also doing quite a lot around medicines themselves and looking at different partnerships of importing different kinds of medical products into Kuwait through a number of Kuwaiti companies. For example, there are things like oral suspensions for people who have difficulty swallowing tablets, particularly useful for children and particularly little infants. So this was an area of the Kuwaiti market that we realised wasn't being served as well as it could be. So a British company came in and found a Kuwaiti distributor. So now we have far more suspension products on the shelves, which hopefully is helping people to feel more comfortable in the way that they're able to take on board their medicine. We're also seeing a lot of Kuwaiti patients still being treated in UK hospitals. That's a privilege for us to be able to do that, to be able to get medical treatment to people who really need it, particularly specialist areas of care, including cancer treatment, but also different kinds of operations. And we're also looking at strengthening these relationships through more formal ties, for example, through the MOU between Kuwait's Ministry of Health and Great Ormond Street Hospital, which is a specialist paediatric facility. So wherever we're noticing areas where the UK could offer more and share more expertise with Kuwait, we're looking at how we can plug those gaps. And of course, any British doctors and medical technicians, medical professionals who come and work in Kuwait, they're learning too, because the environment, the atmosphere is different, and therefore the trends around the more prevalent diseases and illnesses are also very different. So it's always a learning experience on both sides.
Absolutely. Ambassador, before we conclude, is there a message you would like to share with the Kuwaiti people regarding the strong historic partnership between Kuwait and the United Kingdom?
Well, you know, my job here is really a unique experience, and wherever else I go in my career, I'm sure it will feel very different. I feel very at home here. And it's really heartwarming to hear some of the very kind, friendly comments that I hear about my country coming from Kuwaitis. The comments when Her Late Majesty the Queen died, people coming back from summer holidays who've really enjoyed themselves in the UK, young people coming back having finished their studies, who've made lifelong friendships. It's so nice. It makes me feel a little bit homesick at times. But whether it's Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, England, whether it's to do with studies or setting up a new business, or if it's just about tourism, whatever it is, Kuwaitis seem to go to the UK and have a thoroughly good time and then come back and tell their friends about it and want to keep going and visiting. And I think this constant footfall and travel between our two countries really keeps us strong. And I know so many British people, often teachers or business people, who said to me, oh, I came to Kuwait for maybe 1 or 2 years. That was 16 years ago. British nationals who come to Kuwait, they come, try it out and really like it here and want to stay. So it makes my job easier. I'm having a wonderful time here, and I'll be very sad to leave when that day comes.
Yeah, unfortunately. It sounds like you've had a very diverse and fruitful tenure here.
I have. My children have grown up here. One was just a 10-month-old baby when I arrived, the other was 3. You know, one of my children has learned to walk here, learned to talk here. They've both started school here. So I think for my whole family, early childhood memories will all be of Kuwait. It won't be of the UK.
Okay. Well, Ambassador, we really appreciate you sharing your insights and sharing your time with us. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been lovely to have you. That brings us to the end of this special program, and we thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.